What is up to my 7 favorite people? Welcome back to yet another Bitcoin analysis. And today we obviously have some upwards momentum. So after the crash of a couple days ago, we are slowly recovering after we saw the confirmed bullish divergence on the chart, which means we are getting higher highs in the RSI momentum indicator and lower lows in the Bitcoin price. In a bullish divergence often tends to cause either some sideways movement or some upwards movement in the Bitcoin price. So that is exactly what we saw here. Now we are slowly but steadily creeping above the support levels of around 113k. And if this continued, we should be getting our way back into the falling wedge right here, which will mean we will confirm a fake out, get back in here, and the ideal scenario for us would be to break out on the upside, which is of course typical for a falling wedge. Then we would continue our way to the support levels of around 118 to 120k. So that is our ideal scenario on the upside. Of course, currently as it sits, we are still in a downtrend. So as you can see, the upper line here of the falling wedge marks the downtrend that we are in right now. So the logical bias on the 4-hour chart that we are on right now is for us to remain a bit cautious because we are of course in a downtrend. So that is also what I would stay, and to of course flip a little bit more bullish, we have to break this line right here. If we don't and we bounce back to the lower levels, that would simply mean we are going to be continuing the downtrend, and the next target after breaking these levels of around 113k will be to come back into the levels of the capitulation that we just had and move lower again. So yesterday I also explained that usually when we have this type of a crash, as you can see in 2023, what we often get is some sidewards movement, but then we hit these low levels one more time, fill up the liquidity gap before we actually go and get some higher highs. So it is definitely possible for this crash as well that we are getting some sidewards movement right now, but then hitting these lower levels one more time before we continue and get these higher levels. So then if we move from the 4-hour chart and we take a look at the 1-day chart, we can see that we're technically still in a uptrend. As you can see right here, we have a low, then we're getting a high, then we're getting a higher low, and then we're actually getting a higher high. So on the 1-day chart for now, things are still looking positive, and the levels we want to hold are the levels that we are bouncing on right now. So on the 1-day chart, it is very important for us to hold this line right here that is currently sitting around the support level of around 111 to 112k, because that will confirm that we are continuing in an uptrend and we won't be breaking that uptrend on the daily chart. Because if we're breaking the uptrend on the daily chart, things could start to look really bad, and that would again confirm the thesis of us potentially hitting these 100k levels one more time. If however we do continue, the next support level we are going to be looking at is around the 120k level, and then in the longer term we move upwards from there and get back into the ascending wedge and then break the upside, potentially getting a last high before I expect this bull market to potentially also come to an end. Lastly, I want to take a look at the liquidation heat map, because as you can see, after the big price crash, we have gotten a lot of liquidity that has been built up around the 111k level. And if we take a look at the 1-week liquidation heat map, you can see it goes all the way down to around the 105k level. So there is a big pocket of liquidity here on the downside that is currently the closest. And if you're unfamiliar with the liquidation heat map, Bitcoin often tends to move towards the price where there is the most liquidity. So as you can see right here, on the 8th of October, a lot of liquidity started building up, and as you can see at the 9th and the 10th of October, the peak liquidity was sitting right here on the downside, and that's where Bitcoin moved. So we grabbed all of this liquidity, and now the closest one is still on the downside. So We could potentially be looking for one more reset before we go to higher levels. However, in the case that we do move upwards, we are probably going back in this range to grab this liquidity here as well. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I also want to give a special thank you to Wallace for this nice comment on the channel. Don't know how you don't have that many views. Thanks for the update and educating. Wallace, you're very welcome. I hope to see everyone in the next video.